Hello, everybody.
And good morning. And just to also flag who Victoria is, she is our fantastic global lead of the One Planet City Challenge, which all of you have joined. And I'm sure you've gotten many emails from her, but we're very, very happy with her leadership and really taking the OPCC to the next level, which I think we want to talk to you about today.
Well, thanks, Jennifer. And would you like to present yourself as well?
Sure, that's a very good point, Björn. My name is Jennifer Lenhart, and I am the global lead for the WWF Cities program. The cities core team is based in Sweden, but we are extremely thankful to be working in about 40 countries around the world across the WWF network, many of them represented by the cities or WWF offices that have joined us here today. And thanks to the great, fantastic work of our colleagues on the ground, we are so excited to have had 280 cities join the One Planet City Challenge over the last year.
That's really fantastic.
And yourself, Björn?
Me, well, I'm supporting the WWF and the One Planet City Challenge in specific. Now, previously I was for 12 years working at the city of Uppsala in Sweden, and to brag a little bit, we were awarded by WWF and the One Planet City Challenge the Global Award in 2018. So and that was really great. It made everybody in Uppsala very proud, and also gave us more energy, and we were encouraged to even move further on. So, and now I'm happy to help out more cities, not only Uppsala, but advice generally to cities and to WWF.
And thank you so much for doing that bragging. I was going to ask you to brag if you didn't do it anyways. And I think what we have with Björn is both a practitioner, a civil servant who's worked a lot with cities, understands how cities are, and also is helping us improve the One Planet City Challenge from the inside. So we're very happy to be working with you as well, Björn, and your technical expertise.
And now over to the agenda. And
yes,
I will also say that we will try to speak clear and slowly, as we also have interpreters with us so that everybody can follow. We will say something why we do this at all, and why WWF do it, and why everybody that is in the room today do this. We will try to give you some overview of the total result of the 280 cities, and then we will explain a little bit about the different pages in the feedback report, and some reflections on that until we close today. So Jennifer, shall we start with letting everybody in the room? We have let's see if I can change my slide.
Yeah, we want to make this an interactive session for all of you. So we want to know, where are you calling in from? Share us your city and your country. You should be able to join on this Slido, either on your phone by just clicking on this QR code to the left here, or by going on slido.com, and then there is the code to join in on this poll. But share us where you're calling in from.
Istanbul.
Beautiful city.
I haven't been there. No, England. Philippines. Mora in Sweden. Indonesia. Right. Stockholm. Many from Stockholm, it seems.
Well, we have also a lot of our core team is also based in the Stockholm area, so we're cheating a bit here.
I see. India. Welcome, India. And a lot of from England, and I see Tampere in Finland, Oslo, Norway.
Fantastic. And Björn, I just wanted to say, while we're seeing where all of our wonderful colleagues are joining in from around the globe, that, this is also a difficult morning with those of us who've been watching the news quite regularly. I'm sure most of us have. So just to say that I don't think we have any colleagues calling in from Ukraine, but we do stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine and many of the countries in the region that are quite affected by some of the current events underway, which we are taking very much to heart. We have colleagues in offices in many of these parts of the world, including Ukraine, including Russia, including in much of Europe. So just to send our message for solidarity there too.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I'm really concerned, and it's a troublesome time. And still we need to keep two thoughts in our heads at the same time. Solidarity with this crisis and other
the climate crisis
and the climate crisis, the long-term crisis that is also for many people very now as well affected by different climate changes.
Absolutely.
Like Petropolis in Brazil, beautiful place. I had the privilege to visit Petropolis like 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I say. So that was very sad to see those pictures.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, should we go back to the slides as you can continue to fill this in, but we just wanted to show you a little bit, where the colleagues on this call are calling in from. And also we have a few other interactive questions for you as we go forward as well.
Yes, so keep yourself in Slido. Let's see if I can change back. Yes.
There you go. Technical genius.
This is the first time. So Jennifer, tell us why do we work with the OPCC then? Why do we do this at all?
Absolutely. Well, you brought up the example of the huge devastating loss in the Brazilian mountain city Petropolis. I can't say the name correctly, I apologize. But the crises are abounding, whether it's climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, COVID. There are so many challenges, but in cities, these are places where both challenges and opportunities do manifest. So within WWF, and certainly with all of you, since you've joined us on this One Planet City Challenge journey, we would like to envision One Planet cities that enable all people to thrive and flourish while respecting the very real ecological limits of our one and only planet. And together with this, I also just wanted to note that we have a kind of an internal goal, and I will actually share this in the chat with you, but this is that by 2025, and then we will obviously revise it as we go forward, but that we can see cities as transformation catalysts. So really, helping move us forward to do integrated and inclusive plans in line with 1.5 degrees Celsius, so in line with the Paris Agreement, and also addressing urban resilience, because we know how important resilience is, not to mention that we will have the IPCC report coming out next Monday that will be talking about adaptation and vulnerability. So we really want to see how can we unlock the potential of both citizens and collective actions in order to create robust climate action. So that's why we're here, and we're very happy to be part of this journey with you.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction. And cities, Jennifer, they do matter. Here is some figures on why cities are important in leading the way.
Absolutely. And, I don't want to go into all of this because I think a lot of you know this already, and I'm preaching to the choir, as we say. But just to remember that cities are growing exponentially. 55% of human population and increasing. We live in an urban era. They're also responsible for 70% of carbon emissions, 75% of natural resource consumption. So in the OPCC, we talk a lot about climate, but of course, biodiversity loss is a very important issue, but they're not that big. They're only 3% of landmass. So we can really work to create more integrated systems. So just wanted to put a few of these numbers out there for you.
Right. And what is at risk then?
Absolutely. And I should say that, this is a teaser. This will very soon be updated to respect the IPCC, so the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports that are coming out on the 28th of February. So that is the Working Group 2 report on adaptation and vulnerability. And then in early April will come the report on mitigation. So this will actually be updated to compare the risks compared to that new science and the science that has been reviewed in those new IPCC reports. But just to give you an idea of why 1.5 degree matters and why this is such an important mantra or message for WWF, we're talking about, 6% of insects being affected versus 18%. So half a degree makes a huge difference when we're talking about extreme weather that impacts our cities. 100% of increased flood risk, or 170% of increased flood risk, or vulnerability, water vulnerability. How many people will be affected? How many people will be affected by, extreme heat waves, whether it's 9% or 28%. So there's a lot of numbers here. I'm not going to go in repeating all of this. We're very happy to share this graph with you afterwards for those of you who are interested. I also know that it has been translated into many different languages used by WWF colleagues, and it will be updated, as mentioned, to reflect the findings of these new IPCC reports. But every degree matters, and that's why we're here.
Right, and I'm thinking that, thank you for that overview, and this is from IPCC Special Report 2018, right? And I think that we need to, of course, have this risk in the brain, but we maybe allocate maybe 10-15% of our brain capacity on being aware of the risk, but then dedicating the rest of the 80% of our brain capacity to actions and do something about it and mitigate this. And
thank you so much for that, Björn. I love that approach, because we can't just send these messages of scare and being cautious without realizing that we are part of both the challenge or the problem and the solution. As individuals, but also as the collective societies that we are part of. And what we saw also in Glasgow at the climate conference is, while that window is getting more narrow, it has not closed. And this is really up to us. So thank you so much for demonstrating and call that. It's not just about being scared, but it's what can we do to do it. And certainly there's also good news. Many countries around the world have already peaked in their emissions or will very soon peak. So this is from our friends at the World Resource Institute. And just to say that by 2020, around 50 countries, so you can see them here in the light blue and the dark blue, up to 50 countries have already peaked in their emissions. And that's about 40% of global emissions. So, we are moving in the right direction, even if not fast enough. And by 2030, it's estimated that about 57 more countries will be. So together, that'll be about 60% of emissions. So, we're getting there. We're not there yet, but we are getting there. And, just to stay hopeful when the challenges are so big and so complex and so multiple.
Right. And I think that this is not happening by itself, but one major driving force is all the cities like you, the 280 cities and a lot of more cities around the globe that is driving change and pushing your national government to go faster in climate action. Well, we're talking about that on the global level, there is recognition of the ecological environmental threats. Jennifer.
Yes. So our friends at the World Economic Forum have put together the Global Risk Report, which I believe is an annual report, and they assess different decision makers and their awareness of key threats. So they interviewed about 1,000 different experts in this report, from government, from business, from civil society, to see, what are the most severe risks on a global scale coming up to the next 10 years. And you can see half of these risks are environmental risks. So climate action failure, extreme weather, biodiversity loss, human environmental damage, natural resource destruction. I mean, and even some of these other issues, which are not directly environmental, they have a link to the environment, especially when we talk about infectious diseases. And, but whether it be the change in temperature that will bring more infectious diseases on, or certainly as we've seen, with COVID, and the link between nature and humans, and how that can, the challenges of zoonotic diseases. So there's a lot of these issues are so interlinked with how we interact with the natural environment. So the awareness is growing, and that's really good news. But now what? And as we said, this is about so many different levels of action all at once.
Yes. So again, let's see what kind of actions can we take, and what is happening if we look at actions on the ground.
Yeah. Well, there are some really great trends out there, and we want to actually make sure that we flag that. And a lot of this has to do with cities. So, where you guys are at is really the space of change. So one of the exciting things is that investing in nature-based infrastructure. And so nature-based infrastructure instead of gray infrastructure, think seawalls or storm barriers, but instead investing, for example, in urban forests or green roofs. Investing in this nature-based infrastructure can be 50% cheaper than that gray infrastructure and provide multiple co-benefits, including millions of livelihood enhancing jobs. And that's actually from a new report from the World Economic Forum and many other global experts looking at biodiversity and the role of biodiversity connected to cities. Additionally, for most of the world's population, electricity production from new renewables has become more cost effective than coal-fired power plants. So we are moving towards more sustainable energy solutions because it's smart and sustainable and economically sound. In 2020, renewable energy set a record in terms of power capacity with more than 256 gigawatts of renewable power added in 2020, surpassing the former record by 30%. That's a huge number, 30%. Not to mention when we talk about vehicles, and zero emission vehicles are rapidly advancing. In 2020, the global electric car stock hit the 10 million mark. Electric micromobility, e-bikes, e-buses are all growing. This is good news, but we're still not on track. So, what we like to say at WWF is, we're moving in the right direction. We're just not getting there fast enough. But let's take these trends and use them for momentum to increase change even further.
Right. And a lot of this is happening through cities' work and also is opportunities for cities. So cities must lead the way, Jennifer, and can they do it? And I think the answer is yes, you can do it. And now we will try to show a little bit of what you as cities has reported and how you and go back and now deep dive back to the actual feedback report. Absolutely. That we know how that you have in front of you.
So we can flip to the next slide, and just to remind you, when we say yes, we can do it, we base that on tangible evidence of actual change. And we see that because of the cities that are joining the One Planet City Challenge. We've had 700 cities join in the last 10 years. Last year, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and we had the biggest year at all. So 280 cities had joined us in 2021 and are now having their data assessed and reviewed and supported. And, we really want to lift the actions of climate front runners to show, the best practice of what you're doing. But we also know that, WWF is not alone in this journey. We work in partnership with many of the city networks, with many of the big data banks, but we also try to support the United Nations Climate Convention, the UNFCCC, through their Cities Race to Zero campaign to show, rally cities together to show that cities are critical in supporting global climate action. And so we have been able to do this because of you.
Yes. And thank you WWF, who is organizing this with and I think it's extremely good exercise this One Planet City Challenge, where we help each other and put forward good examples and share experiences among cities. This is how your
I think now
report.
It's my turn to ask you a question, Björn, right? So this is the opportunity to open your feedback report, and then Björn's going to guide us through what actually that data means. So what are we evaluating, Björn?
The assessment that the OPCC do based on the reporting you do through the CDP eClay web platform is that in a sense it's basically 3 headings. That is, first of all, the targets you have, are they science-based? Are they aligned with 1.5 degrees climate target? The second point is your actions, your climate actions. Are they targeting the significant emissions that you have? So if you have a lot of transport emissions, emissions from the transport sector, do you also have a lot of actions on that sector? And thirdly, the climate hazards that you have identified, do you meet them with appropriate actions? So this is in a nutshell. And in the first pages of the feedback report, you will get a little bit of the background, what the similar background to what Jennifer has gone through now during the seminar, and also explaining a bit more about the alignment. So Jennifer, I think I go directly to page 8. If you mind, everybody looking into this, listening into this, page 8 would be interesting for you. Here you can see, compare where you are in comparison with other cities in your country. And here we have the scores that you get from your reporting. We have divided into 2 dimensions, one on visions, where your targets, your political commitment, etc., is rated, and then impact, and that is your actions, mitigation actions, adaptation actions, and emissions reporting, so on, and see how well you score on that. And basically, it's they're preferable. They should be a balance between impact and vision, and you would find yourself as far up in the upper right corner as possible. Your city is marked here, and your name is in the square in your own report.
Can I just say one thing, Björn? If this is confusing for any city, that's why we're here. That's why we're having this webinar. So please do put any of your questions about this or any of the rest of the technical information that follows into the chat. And we also have some colleagues that are monitoring the chat specifically. So we can either take those questions up in a group here, or they can answer them directly. So all questions are very important at this stage of the game.
Yes, thank you, because I don't know if I explained this in a pedagogical way.
You did, but it's always, this is big data, so it's useful to just allow any questions that come.
Yes, I think it can be complicated, so it's very good to put any questions and we'll answer to it. In the next 2 slides, we will show you the same graph, but now for all the cities that are participating in this round, and first one page with all the cities that participated in the last round of the OPPC, that is awarded 2020, so the round 1920. So the same graph, but now all 280 cities, and it looks like this. The red dots are all the participants. And to see what this means, we need to go to the next picture and see how does the cities in this round do.
Wow, there's a big difference. You're
I
seeing a
think so.
positive change.
I think it's a great change.
Mhm.
Let's go forth and back and so you can see that many cities, a huge number of cities has progressed upwards in impact, but also on vision. And vision is targets and political commitment and etc. And impact is of course action, both on adaptation and mitigation.
So a question we have here then is, for the cities that are attending, do you see improvements in your city as a whole as well? According to the global data, do you also see that locally?
Right. And I must say that it's not exactly the same cities that participated in this round that participated in the last round, but a huge number of the cities are the same. And thank you for that. Continue participating and showing the importance of cities. So we celebrate that huge progress, but of course nobody is satisfied until everybody is in the upper right quadrant of the scheme. What do you say, Jennifer?
Absolutely.
So let's keep on helping each other. And the idea with this feedback report is that you can use it in your city to explain and mobilize people in your organization or the political level, and also companies and organizations and citizens in your city to show how are you city doing and where can you go further and take steps forward. So let's move to another page in your report. This is we're referring to page 6 in your report. This is where the you get a feedback on whether your targets, climate mitigation targets, that is, if they are science-based aligned to 1.5 degrees target. And first, to explain what is the science-based targets according to the method that WWF is applying. That is that we need on a global scale half emissions by 2030, counting from 2018, and then go down to a net zero, that is have very low fossil emissions and then also some negative emissions so that it balances out to a zero or net zero impact. And in the graph, you will see that the square here is where you are today in emissions per capita. And this, Jennifer, what is the name of this kind of figure?
The target.
The target, science-based targets. It's a diamond, diamond shape.
The diamond, I see.
Yes, the diamond shape.
Question.
Yes. And your target should be below these two or in line with these two diamonds. And in this case, this city example has their targets below the 2030 science-based targets. So they are science-based aligned. And we're glad to see that there are some 75 cities out of the 280 that are aligned with the science-based targets in one or two ways.
And if I can just interrupt you, Björn, that is a huge change from what we saw 2 years ago. I think that's more than a doubling. I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm hoping one of our OPCC experts can add that. But this is a big and important change. We're talking about the need for exponential growth on science-based targets, and we're not quite at that exponential level yet, but we are definitely moving in the right direction. So congratulations to those of you who are part of that 74, and the rest of you, we want to work with you to get there.
Absolutely. I actually have the figure here, Jennifer. It was like 25, 26 cities in the last round. So it's a triple. No, great work. And we could see that also only in October, December, there were another 18 cities adopting science-based targets. So now we are 75, or we might be 75 by now, as it's increasing all the time, and that's a huge improvement. And a target is important because it shows the society where you want to go, so that everybody can help in and understand where we're going. This is actually a screenshot from the feedback report of Lund in Sweden.
And shared with their permission, we might add.
Yes. I don't know if anybody from Lund is here. If Linda, maybe if you're there, you are welcome to comment on your targets. But otherwise, I will do it. How I was thinking that we should show how an example of how a city can formulate a target, science-based target, and this is my English translation of their Swedish target. But in 2030, emissions, greenhouse gas emissions are to decrease with 80% compared with 2010. So 80% to 2030, and in general, the fair share for Swedish cities is to have not 50% to 2030, this halving, global average halving, but the Swedish cities are asked to set a target more about up to 65% lower to 2030. And then Lund has the target for 2045 to become climate positive with near zero fossil emissions. And I think this is really important, that you cannot be climate neutral unless you have low fossil emissions at the same time. And they say climate positive because it's more fun and more encouraging to work towards climate positive rather than climate negative and negative emissions and so on. So absolutely. Words matters maybe. Yes.
And on that note, while Björn's finishing, think about those kind of wording and messaging in your own cities to get more positive messaging, gets more people wanting to be on board and seeing that there are real opportunities by addressing a climate positive future, whether it be jobs, whether it be improvements in quality of life, air quality, etc. So there are lots of real strong benefits for addressing these climate positive approaches.
And we think many cities might think, but can we put a net zero target for our city? Yes, we think you can. And we wanted to show you this slide where we can see that more and more countries on the national level is setting national net zero targets. Different years, it can be 2050, 2045, something like that. But it's a growing number of countries that are committing themselves to a net zero target by latest 2050. So this is also comforting. You can use this if you are a city in one of these countries, or if you're a city in a country that does not yet have a zero net target. Give a good example and push your country to set a net zero target. What do you say, Jennifer? Shall we ask our?
Yeah, time for another question, indeed. So
right.
Open that Slido, and here's our next question.
Right. Will your city set science-based targets? Is the question for you, and please.
Wow.
Right,
That's a
we
good
already
start response. Only one person there so far, but
100%. Yeah,
yes.
we love 100%. Right now people had time to enter Slido.
And if you're not sure, I think maybe you can answer the last one. We cannot set SBTs or science-based targets at this time. And that doesn't mean that you can't, but maybe you just need more information.
Right. And I think, what would you say, Jennifer? What is most important, to have a science-based target for 2030 or for 2045, 2050?
Gosh, that is a good question, but I think, Björn, I'm going to hand that one back to you with your technical expertise.
I think, yes. Basically, we maybe the 2030 target is more important, because we do need to act now.
Yes.
And because it's not enough with only a net zero target in 2050, because then people might think, oh, well, it's easy, we can go in 2049, we can lower our emissions to zero, and that's we fine. But the climate is changing because of the accumulated number and tons of greenhouse gas emissions. So every ton of greenhouse gas emissions that we can mitigate as early as possible will help us to stay below 2 degrees and as low as 1.5 degrees.
Absolutely. So we need to think long term, but we need to act now.
Right.
So we need both of these levels of targets, but the urgency is very present. We see it already, what's happening in cities and natural landscapes. We know that there are real positive changes for acting on climate, co-benefits in terms of jobs, quality of life, improvements in air quality. So why not act now?
And I think it's very interesting to, if we conclude a little bit about the poll here, that we're very happy to see that there is 17%, and 17 plus 17, that's like 25% who is about to in the near future to set the science-based target. That's very hopeful. And we can also see that there is some 30% that for the time being is not setting science-based target. And this is something maybe that we can work together with the concerned cities to help each other. And this is, of course, not all 280 cities are participating today. So that is also maybe reflected in the poll here.
Yes. And I would just say, for those of you who are not quite there yet, or you want to get there, reach out to your local WWF office. We have a global network. We have a lot of experts. Obviously, you have a lot of expertise in your own municipality, but definitely let us work together, because I think this is, even if you're already there, this is not easy. This is a huge challenge. And it becomes a little bit easier by collaborating, learning together, seeing what other cities are doing, knowing what resources are available.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. That's very good input, to know that there is help out there. So I thought I would go through another very important page in the feedback report, and that is page 7. And here is we call this the 7 levers or leverages for change. So the scoring based on your reporting is divided into 7 categories. You see them, the 7 bars in yellow, filled completely or partially in yellow. Mitigation targets, emission reporting, adaptation action, etc. In your report, you will see that each of the yellow bars are filled, or you have also a percentage number. So you can see if it's 100% or 80% or 25%. This gives you a we think, a very good overview of your status of your climate work at this time. And it gives you a hint where you could maybe develop further your work. Let me give an example how the percentage works. For example, mitigation action. The sixth lever, a total 25 points are given for that. So if you have scored 18 points, the lever will be filled up to 75%. 18 through 24 is 75%. And we have in the seminar that Victoria mentioned, the seminar from the 17th of October, me and Tabare Coraz, who is technical lead at OPCC, we go through all of this quite much in detail. So also, please look through that to get also a deeper understanding of the whole assessment. Right. You know what, Jennifer, I was looking a little bit into regional thing. If we're gonna give you a little bit of a global perspective on your own scoring, your own city scoring, and can see that different regions in globally is doing better than others on the different levels. There's regional differences. Different regions it seem better in some respects. So, for example, emissions reporting. Europe is among the regions that do well. I'm looking to my paper right now a little bit. Climate risk analysis, climate risk assessment, the fifth lever here. That is Asia and Oceania is very good at this, together with Latin America. Mitigation action, here is North America and Asia, Oceania. And if we go to adaptation actions, Africa is leading on number of adaptation actions and other things concerning adaptation actions among the regions. Also, Asia and Oceania is very good on that. So here is also we can learn from each other in different regions.
Absolutely. And I just want to compliment, I see Victoria is quickly answering the chat. But this is sort of generalized information that we have here about these very crucial 7 levers of change. And then Björn's also adding a bit of a regional context, but you have more specific questions about your particular city. As Victoria mentioned, do reach out to the OPCC help desk. And also we can loop in or connect also the national WWF office, as well as the CDP contact, so that we can really help you dig into understanding your specifics a bit further. But this is sort of the general information that we see as very critical to move forward.
Right, and very critical then to, if we move on, is actually, if you have a look at your page 9 here, your sectoral emissions and the actions that you plan. This picture shows your emissions that you have reported for your emission inventory, the share of emissions for the different sectors, energy, transport, waste, etc. And the inner circle is the actions potential that you have reported. And this is a little bit to show that, do you have actions on your significant emissions sectors? Do you meet your emissions with appropriate actions and enough actions and so on? This is quite a good graph. It's very visual, I think. And what I understand from the from WWF is that we need more action, right?
Absolutely.
We can see that a lot of cities do have difficulties to account or calculate the climate abatement result or effect of their actions. So this is somewhere where we both need to do more actions and also a little bit learn how to calculate them to see if we have enough actions to meet our targets.
Yes, yeah, just to repeat what, oh, could we have a support muting, right? Or unless that's thank you. Yeah, just to repeat what Björn said, you know, a lot of cities are seeing this inner wheel empty or almost empty. And that is, as he's mentioned, because it's a little bit more difficult to quantify the actions that are there, or, you know, really to need to move on to that tangible, now let's implement. We want to see move from the long-term targets, while we do recognize that that's very, very important. But the urgency that we see out there in the world requires immediate action. So, you know, how can we fill in this inner wheel is very, very crucial. Just to add that, you know, there is momentum building, not just in your cities, but also in the global space. If we take the most recent climate change conference, COP26, that happened in November in Glasgow, we saw a move towards strengthening of the NDCs, or the nationally determined contributions that different countries are taking. We also saw a strengthening of the rule book, which is part of the infrastructure of how the UNFCCC and the climate conference moves forward. And for one of the first times ever, we saw that cities were recognized very strongly within the text that came out of the Glasgow Climate Conference. So there is momentum at different levels to support you on this. But, you know, as Björn also mentioned, we need to see how can we learn to really quantify these impacts. And then, you know, how is your city doing? Is it moving fast enough? Is there learning or comparison to do with other cities? Which I guess moves us on to our next question.
Yeah, brilliant. This is our third and last question to you. We're very interested to see what is your next step from now on. We would love to learn if you could maybe state 1, 2, or maybe even 3, but just one action that you think will accelerate your climate action and move you towards your science-based target.
And this is a word cloud, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Okay, so you have open whatever you want to write in there, and this is anonymous, by the way, so you don't have to worry about that. We're not tracking who's saying what.
But I'd rather get a picture of what you see is important right now.
Absolutely.
I think also one thing that strikes me now, Jennifer, is that I think it would be good if we could hold a global seminar on how to calculate actions and their emissions decrease.
Oh yeah.
Through the actions. A little bit just to get some kind of help and start, because I know it's I'm working with the 20 Swedish cities, and we had a local seminar on that, how to do this in Sweden and so on. I think it can be helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, this is complex data, and it's not always extremely clear what is the best action to take, or are there multiple? And it's not always the same in different cities. You know, each city is a little bit different. Each country and region is a little bit different. But what I'm also hearing, Björn, is you're having so much fun with this webinar series that you want us to keep going.
Yes, I'm feeling like I'm a TV or radio program leader.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, this is the first time we've actually done such a webinar series. And so it's been really enjoyable to see how much engagement and interest there have been from so many cities. And, you know, how can we create a community together? How can we learn from each other? You're calling in from so many different parts of the world, which is just very inspiring for us to work with you, but also to certainly learn from you, both what works and what's a challenge.
And let's see, what do we have here? Waste emissions, of course. In general, over the globe, most emissions in the cities are from transport and energy. Some cities in some part of the world has low emissions from the energy sector, and then transport becomes even more important. This is the case with my own country. So it's but also waste can be very important and very important area to work with in general. Smart city planning, structural change, involve more actors. Yes, we need to be more organizations, people, companies, the whole city administration. Everybody needs to be mobilized. Right. Brilliant. I think we move on because we're running out of time. But please do keep on filling it. I think it's very interesting for us.
And while you're transitioning back to that slide, I just wanted to say I love the circular economy connection too, because cities, the more circular we think, the less waste we put out there, and also the more resources we can continue to reuse, which has certainly environmental benefits, but can also have very important economic benefits. So great thinking there.
Absolutely. We don't want to dig deeper in each other's gardens for more minerals.
Absolutely.
We want to reuse them that we already dug up. So want to know more about your feedback report, Jennifer?
Yes. So this was a kind of a general overview, and we hope that it was helpful to kind of navigate that feedback report and what some of those key pages mean. But of course, this becomes much more meaningful digging in a little bit locally. So reach out to us, find out your national office. Let's bring them on board. Many of them will be doing similar presentations or support programs to the cities in a particular country. And you can always reach out to us. And I see Victoria's even added her email in there. So our guru and fantastic lead of the One Planet City Challenge is also here to help, and very eager, I might add.
Right. So that is also because not all cities are in a country which have a national office or a national contact person. So we also have some backup to give some support to these cities from the global team.
Definitely. And so, I will add just the overarching email, which I think you all have, but the OPCC at wwf.se, that's also an email that we monitor regularly in addition to some of these other emails. So for example, if Victoria's on a short holiday and you can't get a hold of her, reach out to OPCC. We can also put you in touch with the technical help desk because many of the questions will probably go there. But so we have several different emails to connect you to and make sure you get the information you need.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's thanks to all of you who participated today and listened in. And I do hope you have put your question in the chat or in the question and answer. So we'll try to answer you back to this.
Jennifer and Björn, do you have time to stay for a couple of minutes in case anybody wants to ask a question? So
absolutely,
we can let everybody that are in a hurry leave. And thank you for coming here today. And
definitely. And before we finish the final, I think we have one last webinar in this first series, anyways.
Oh yeah, we do.
Victoria.
Where is that?
So we have a final webinar on energy efficiency on the 31st of March. Excellent. I'm gonna set I'm gonna post a link in the chat in just a second.
And you can always reach out to us through OPCC at wwf.se, as you can see in this slide.
Fantastic. Thank you, Victoria. And this is a very important area for us as well. And also with the question that Björn just asked in terms of, what are those key areas that we can address? Energy efficiency has huge potential, and it's also great to save local municipal resources.